Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Puzzled Minds podcast. We are joined today by Stewart again, and he is the host of Be Unguarded, the podcast Be Unguarded. So please give him a warm welcome back.
Hello, it's good to be back again.
Yeah, man. It's, I think we kind of have you as our scientific liaison or stuff like that. So it's
not good.
Well, hopefully it stays good after this episode. So we'll see how this goes.
Yeah.
Today's topic is brought to you by the letter S for simulation theory. Today we'll be talking about, what it is, why it's more probable that we are living in one, and some of the glitches that we do experience in simulation. So I guess I kind of want to start off with like what it is. And so there was a Swedish philosopher by the name of Nick Bostrom, and he wrote a paper, and I'll link this in the paper or in the description that we have for the episode, and it's called "Are You Living in a Computer Simulation?" And so he believes like in the future, later generations will use these super powerful computers to run simulations. And so he proposes like three arguments. The first one is like if human species are very likely to go extinct before they're able to make simulations that are indistinguishable from reality. The second argument is that future humans that are so advanced, they'll be able to make these simulations let me repeat that. Future humans that are advanced enough to make these simulations will choose not to create them. And then the third one is we are almost certainly living in a computer simulation. So that's like his paper. And so to kind of break it down to make it more palatable, I guess. So essentially it's that this whole universe and everything is just a simulation that a supercomputer had made, kind of like The Sims or like The Matrix. And we're simply like running in the computer to reach a final answer, like they're kind of simulating what they want to see and how things go, kind of like, 2020 and how it's going right now. But there's this guy on Reddit, and I want to give him all the credit because I think this puts it very perfectly in how he words it. Mm-hmm. The Reddit user is Kubrick is my co-pilot, and so he essentially says a mind is itself a simplified simulation of a body and environment. So we are a simulation, even if the universe is exactly what it seems. I don't know why I'm out of breath. I don't know what the hell.
So much knowledge. Makes me seem tired of fatigue.
I don't know.
There's a coding glitch.
That's what it is. Holy shit, dude. But in simulation theory, we are either simulations occurring in a medium other than a biological brain, or our biological brains being fed sensory information by something other than our perceived environments. And so there's three parts. The first part is either it's known reality and we are simulations in our biological brain. The second one is limited simulation theory, information that causes our perceptions to be completely artificially generated. But we still exist.
Can you explain the difference between those two? Because I felt like just kind of heard a definition, but like what exactly does that mean?
So known reality is just what it is right now. Like it is what, like we are, our brain is essentially, how do I say this? Like our brain is, I don't even know how to say this. Like our brain is what, like our brain is, I don't know.
Can you read the first and second one again real quick?
So, the mind itself is a simplified simulation of a body and environment. So we are simulations even if the universe is exactly what it seems.
Okay, and then the second one?
The second one is the information that causes our perceptions is completely artificially generated, but we still exist within a biological brain like the Matrix.
Got it. Okay, so then, the first one is essentially saying like how we are today, like current reality or what we think it is of, our mind, our brain is in our bodies, and due to the stimulus of our bodies, that creates our reality. The second one is saying we're a brain inside a vat somewhere in like a science lab, and they're feeding it, electrostimulus, and that's what's creating our reality. So it seems like we're sitting here and we're having these conversations, but really we're just a brain on a table somewhere, and there's no body or anything like that.
Oh wow,
So that's the difference, I think, between those two.
Yeah.
that's your interpretation though, to think that you actually everything, because basically it's saying, the second one is basically saying that like even what I'm saying right now is someone feeding me this information. So it
Yeah.
basically eliminates the whole idea of free will completely.
Yeah, either feeding the information of what you're saying or just feeding enough stimulus to your brain that your brain is now hallucinating this reality.
That is insane. I mean, if you think about it, I mean, I guess the interesting thing about simulation theory is almost pretty much that there has to be some sort of higher intellectual, like intellectually superior species that is controlling this entire thing. That's the part that I guess I've like from what I've understood about it, I have a hard time agreeing, because I personally, I'll say right now, I don't think it exists. Like it sounds like a very intelligent thing to say, but it just seems like a theory that has a lot of holes in it. For example, the whole idea of like, okay, if you're if every human being is in a simulation, I wonder like even the way we relate to each other, are you part of my simulation, or are you an individual and we're in some sort of like conjoined simulation, right? So does John exist? Does Stewart truly exist? Or am I in a simulation being fed this information to believe it exists? If it's not that, and everyone I'm seeing is also in the simulation, are we in some sort of like Matrix style? Like remember that scene in the Matrix where everyone was in a pod and it's like a planet sized, like, pretty much farm where people are just in these little like tubes. We're all being fed the same thing. Those are the things that my brain immediately went to, and I haven't really heard an explanation as to how that could possibly exist. And then also, if we're in a simulation, why would our brains be programmed to discover eventually that we're in a simulation? Because if you've seen the movies, every single movie we've seen with people in the simulations, it never goes well when you find out you're in a simulation. It always leads to some form of insanity, right?
So I think it's the latter. What you're talking about, how everyone is in one simulation and we're all being like controlled, I guess. I don't know if that's the word that we want to use. But I don't know if you can kind of explain the Stewart, but like how it is more probable that we are, like due to the math.
Yeah. So I've been trying to think of kind of like an analogy of how that would work. And I don't know, this could be completely off base, but picture you're on a baseball team, right? And you're heading to the baseball fields for practice. And there's just someone there who assigned you to whatever field completely randomly, right? They don't say or ask you which one you want to be in. They just say, hey, this is the field you're practicing on today. Field 1 or field 2. So 2 fields. One of them has red grass and the other one is green. We'll say red is like real reality, and then green in this instance would kind of be like, I guess, quote unquote, the simulation. Show up and then he says, okay, you go to red or you go to green. Well, you have a 50-50 chance of being on the red grass or the green grass, right? Because there's two fields, 50-50 chance of either or for red or green. Now let's say you're going to practice in a different park and there's 4 baseball fields. Only one of those is red and the other 3 are green. Still getting randomly assigned by someone who works the organization or the league or whatever. Well, now your chances of being on that red grass are a little different, because now it's 25% compared to 75% chance of being on the green grass. So the theory with simulation, or I guess the idea is, if you have and create a simulation of a world that is indistinguishable from your own, right? Like if I had a computer behind a curtain and a human or a brain behind another curtain, and I ask questions to both and I can't tell the difference, is there really a difference between the two? Now, if we get the computing power to do so, we create that world or that universe or whatever it is, there might come a point where the simulations in there actually get the same exact capability to create their own simulation, right? So it kind of like compounds onto each other. So the simulation creates a simulation and so on and so forth. And theoretically that can go on forever, millions, billions, trillions, whatever simulated worlds there are. So then when it comes to the idea of, okay, well, are you on that one red grass or are you on all the green ones? Just looking at it like that, you're probably more likely to be on the green ones than just that one singular red grass somewhere out there in the world.
Yeah, I guess to say it's like more statistically probable that we're in Stewart's scenario that we're on the green grass, because there's like you said, millions, billions, and trillions of those green grasses, and the chance of you being in the red one is like you would statistically be more likely to be in the green, aka simulation. If that makes sense to you.
Yeah, and I hear what you're saying, because it's like we don't have the technology. Like, how would that even work? I think some of the things with this
that's
is
the
like
fundamental issue with it, where there's no explanation. There's only an explanation as to it's explained as if it's already in existence. And I think that's the flaw in the logic, where it's like, okay, if it were to exist, this is how it would work. I understand that part. I'm like, I get how it would work if it existed, but there's not any explanation as to why it would exist. Like, if we're, because I'm seeing the logic in how it could possibly work. I'm sitting there, I guess I'm almost like standing on the outside about the fundamental things, like, okay, now that would basically confirm the existence of basically aliens, right? Because are humans putting other humans in a simulation? I don't think so. I mean, I don't think that's what the explanation would be. It would have to be some sort of higher life form. The reasoning behind it, if we are in a simulation, is essentially how do we decide? How do they decide when we die, or how are we fed? All those things are just not even remotely talked about, which I think would be a very important part, because if you're going to explain, like right now I'm living and breathing and I can explain why I'm living and breathing. But if you tell me it's a simulation, now I'm going to wonder, how am I living and breathing outside of the simulation? And then even what John and I were talking about like a little bit before we started was the whole idea of, are we even human beings, or are we another species of something being, but we're being, I guess, I don't know, like total human. So that makes sense. Like, we're in the simulation, I'm a human being, but when I wake up, I'm something different if I were to wake up. So those are the things that I sit there and talk about. That's the reason why I just sit there and like, man, I just don't believe it. I just flat out don't. And I get sometimes, like, because sometimes deja vu is a real thing. That's the only thing that I kind of really agree with. I've had some legitimate deja vu moments. Like, I had one like last week where I was sitting there on my bed reading a book, and for whatever reason, I feel like I've had this moment before. And the deja vu phenomenon is like a very weird thing. And I guess everyone always says that's the glitch in the matrix, right? That's the glitch in the simulation where, I don't know, some code repeated itself. And those are things that I've always been like, man, if I were to believe it, those moments where it's just odd, because a deja vu moment, it's not scary, it's not euphoric, it's just strange. Like, it's almost like there's no emotion you can assign to it.
So I was gonna wait to talk about like the glitches in the simulation, but let's say fucking let's just do it now. So I looked up some things and they said deja vu was one of them, like a glitch or flaw in the simulation. Then you have the Mandela effect also, and there's a researcher in the University of Washington.
The Mandela effect is also like, I know what deja vu is, but for our listeners, what is like the Mandela effect?
So it's a situation where like a large amount of people believe an event occurred when it didn't.
Okay, so it's essentially the same thing as deja vu, but on a bigger scale. Like, multiple people believe that this thing's happened before.
Yeah, it's like I think one of the examples is the books, like the Bernstein versus the Bernstein Bears, like the spelling of it, and like some people vividly remember it's spelled one way, and then if you look now, it's spelled completely different. But it's not just like one person; it's like hundreds of thousands, if not a couple million people who think or know, like, hey, when I grew up, it was spelled this way, but now when I look at it, it looks different.
Yeah.
So it's little things like that.
It's like Oscar Mayer too. Shout out Glitzy Gang. Oscar Mayer, I think the way that people used to spell it a certain way, but when you look at it, it's like, it's not OS or MEYER, Oscar Mayer. It's MAYER or something like that. It's spelled differently than what you remember it being. But so then like another example is like there's a researcher in the University of Washington that said he was able to like encode malware into physical strands of DNA, and I'm not sure how he did that. They didn't really explain it. Yeah, I'll link that article into the description as well. But he said that whenever he put it into a gene sequencer to analyze it, the data essentially corrupted the gene sequencing software.
So basically, what is malware on a human body? Like, I know in a computer, your computer crashes. You click on
Yeah.
big butt Spanish singles, and it doesn't take you to those Spanish singles, your computer explodes. But as a human, but as a human being, what does that do?
I don't know. I I guess that's the thing of how that's a quote glitch,
A
like
disease? Like you just what? Like you experience like see that's the thing, man. I feel like there are a lot of explanations. Like so, I feel like there's a lot of information on this, theory, right? It's like like you guys were talking about deja vu, Mandela effect, but there's no conclusive like this is the reason why we believe it's a simulation. Because even like when they use the word simulation, are they is it implied that we're is it a machine that is generating that? Like that's the part I'm still confused about. Like, is it implied that we're in a machine that is, and we're being fed this world,
so
or
I
is it?
guess
Yeah,
it's so it's from my understanding it's that there's a civilization far 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 down with superhuman or super capability computers that are so advanced that they're able to run simulations for the whole for the whole world. It's that powerful. Like our computers now are very powerful, but just think of it in the sense of it's like a superhuman, like 10 or 100 foot
yeah.
wide computer. It's like that powerful.
Mm.
Yeah, it's like I just the thought of technology getting so advanced, like it's hard for us right now, right? Because we don't have that. We cannot currently create a simulation that mirrors our own reality. But let's say in 100 years, 200 years, 300 years, whatever it is, we get to that point where we can do it. I think for me, that's when it's like, oh shit. Like if we can sit here and create this ourselves and can't distinguish between that and our
Yeah.
world, who's to say we're not already in something like that? And it's
It's
interesting
almost like
because
the Inception movie where
yeah,
they blending between reality and I guess they call them dreams in that, but essentially it's the same thing, simulations, because they were basically living in a different plane of existence. The only difference is, I guess, knowing that plane of existence exists drove most people mad.
yeah, and it's interesting because kind of like we were talking about earlier, it's like a billion to one chance that you're in the true reality. But I'm trying to remember what his name was. I think it was Rich Gott. Had this argument that basically said where we are today, right? We can't do that. We can't create our own universe and technology or whatever that is. We can't create a simulation. So if you look at the idea of simulation theory of there's billions of simulations that are constantly making simulations, so there's billions more and so on and so forth. Well, we're not there. So we're either the base reality or we're at the very end of the chain and we haven't created a simulation inside of our own world yet. So that really puts us at a 50-50 chance, not a billion to one chance that we're the base reality versus a simulation.
Wait, so we are 50-50 because we don't have the capability to make simulations?
Because if you look at like the simulation theory as a whole, it goes off of the idea that you have all of these simulations that are creating their own simulations and so on and so forth. But where we are today, we're not there. So we're either at the very end of that chain. So we're the very last simulation that's been created so far because we haven't been able to create our own yet. So we're at the very end of that, or we're at the very beginning and we haven't created anything yet. And we're just the true one reality right now. So it becomes a 50-50 chance versus like a billion to one.
So you're in a simulation that's in a simulation. So you could be someone else's sim. That is wild to think. See, that is crazy thing. There's actually, I believe it was fun, kind of side tangent. There's a game called Final Fantasy X. And I remember at the end of the game, you find out the main character, this guy named Titus, actually was a dream. So essentially the premise was he wasn't even a real existence. The whole game took place in the dream of a god. And that was I remember a mind fuck kind of thing. And I remember in that game, what happened was when you realized, the second you realized the truth, you were erased from existence. So essentially you would wake up the being. So essentially your character was the dream. You were dreamt up by somebody else. So essentially once you became self-aware of that, you like turn into like stardust. You know, Japanese people have some weird shit
Mm.
going on. But I feel like the thing I just don't understand about this is that if, let's say, for example, we know we're in a simulation, does that do anything? Is there any information about that? Like, if I find out that, like, yes, I know 100% I'm in a simulation, am I myself? Like, am I a black tatted up dude in some sort of chamber dreaming of the life I'm existing right now, or am I something else dreaming? You know, like, I guess being dreaming of something. That's the part that I still think is unanswered. So, like, even if we were like when you say the base reality, I feel like once you get into this whole part about the simulation within a simulation, there is no true way to know if you're the base simulation.
Yeah. There isn't. At least I don't think there is, and it's no different than, you know, people study the brain their entire lives, but we're a brain studying the brain. Like, you can only go so much there at the end of the day, because you can't be an outside observer on it. So until we get to the point where maybe we can create our own simulation and then study it from the outside, I mean, even then it's still a simulation, potentially studying a simulation. So it's not going to be much. We'll learn more, but we're not able to step out of it to even theorize or figure out or break out, or, hey, this is actually what's going on, and that's why I'm sitting here today. Like, we won't be able to do that.
Yeah, I mean, or maybe what if death is people waking up?
Oh shit.
That would be, I mean, that would be crazy if death is just you waking up, and that's the reason why. I mean, 'cause if you think about it, I mean, like, if you, like, when you die, like, if you die and then you wake up, do you wake up from a simulation to something else? And if going on to what you guys were just talking about with the infinite, if you're into this theory about the infinite simulation theories, that means that every time you die, you're just waking up constantly forever, which seems like actually torture. It seems like forcing mortality, which is extremely painful. I feel like you go crazy. Like, I die right now, then I wake up again, unless there's some sort of mind wipe or something like that, which would seem to be necessary. Because I think if you wake up from one simulation, I think the amount of damage that would do to whatever you wake up to, it'd be irreparable. I would rather, if I'm in a simulation right now, I would rather not know. Because every single choice, every single decision, every single happy moment, every single sad moment means it does not matter.
So, speaking of damage, what about the Yanni versus Laurel thing that was happening? Like the blue dress, gold dress thing?
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that kind of like a glitch? And that caused so much despair between everyone. Like, no one knew what the fuck was going on. Like, no one knew if it was Yanni, if it was Laurel, if it was blue dress, gold dress. No one knew what the fuck it was, you know? And I think that caused me some discomfort because I didn't know what the fuck it was.
Yeah, I know. That's actually a very good point, because there were some people, because when I saw it, I think I haven't seen it in a while, but I think I saw it as a gold dress. I could not even see the blue part. I remember, but I do remember other people, when people saying it's clearly blue, I started trying to see it as blue, and I think I almost tricked myself into it. So I don't think that proves that you're in it, like, it's a glitch in a simulation, because also the existence of like hallucinogens and things that can literally warp your perception, I wouldn't say conclusively it's things that kind of like mess around with your perception or glitches in the system. You know, because we have brains, and our brains interpret things differently. It's almost like the idea of, like, you know, like the saying says, you can know something's not true, but if you lie to yourself long enough, it can become fact. Like, you can believe something has happened.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I think it has to do with the brain. And going back to what Stewart was saying, is that with the whole, like, I don't think there's any true way to ever understand or ever know. If we're in a simulation, I don't think we can truly ever know, because it's like you're studying. We have limits to our brain power, right? So if a brain studying a brain has limits. So you can never truly understand the full capabilities of something. So if you're in a simulation trying to study on simulations, there has to be limits to it. So you would have to have a superior almost processing power, in terms of, like, our brain would have to have a superior processing power than the simulation to understand the simulation.
Mm-hmm.
But if we're in a simulation and our brains are within the confines of it, I don't see how we would ever truly understand it, or what good it would even do.
So I was going to save this for the end, because I was going to use this as like a wrap up thing. But since we're talking about this, I think this is a really good quote from, his name is Douglas Adams, and it's from The Restaurant at the End of the Universe. And he states, in quotes, "There's a theory that states that if anyone discovers exactly what this universe is for, and what it's here for, it will instantly disappear and be replaced by something even more bizarre and inexplicable.
It's kind of like that the Final Fantasy a little bit there.
Yeah.
Like we were saying earlier.
Yeah, where we have to. It's like you're better off not knowing, if you are in one or not. I think that's the interesting thing in all this. I think that at the end of the day, like, let me ask you guys: would you guys want to know if you're in a simulation?
I mean, it doesn't for me at least. Like, it doesn't. If I found out that I wasn't in a simulation, like, everything would be pointless. On a personal scale, it would be pointless. It would be useful to whoever's simulating, because I guess they're using this to find out stuff.
Yeah.
But on a personal level, like everything that you do is pointless.
Like, would it benefit you? Sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
No, you're good. I don't know. I feel like I'm kind of opposite. Like, I don't know. What would that change for me? Because we could sit here and talk about it, and there's times where I already think, like, are we in a simulation? Now, collectively as humans, I feel like the entire world would be different. I don't know. People would be trying to figure out how to break things and out and glitch, or I don't even know what it would look like. But I feel like from a society standpoint, things would probably come crashing down.
Exactly. Have you guys seen that amazing Christopher Nolan movie, Inception?
Yeah, essentially, I guess it would be like that. Like you wake up and then you're in another.
But do you remember the beginning of that movie? What happened to DiCaprio's character, his wife? They came out of the dream, and they came out of a dream, right? This is earlier on when they first were trying to bounce back between, dreams and reality. And it got to a point where she actually got into what Stuart was talking about, where everything, actually done what you were talking about, everything becomes pointless. Where she kills herself. She jumps off a balcony on like a 10-story building and kills herself. Because it got to a point where she couldn't tell the difference. Because if we're in a simulation, this is an extremely convincing simulation. That means our brains are 100% fully immersed on a level that I think most people don't understand would be detrimental if you're pulled from. Because your entire reality and who you are right now is based off all this. Like, you believe that, like, if you wake up and you find out that, like, you're an actual, what if you wake up from a simulation, you find out, like, you're a blue alien? Think about your identity.
Like Dr. Manhattan? You just wake up.
You have his powers too? Because that'd be great.
Yeah, you just wake up, you're not even human. You wake up and you're some random thing. Right now, you think that, you're John, you're Asian dude John, I'm African black dude Ted, and Stuart, presumably with a name like Stuart, I'm assuming he's white.
Correct.
White dude Stuart. You wake up and you find out that you're a 6-tentacled blue alien. You think you're just going to be like, oh, okay.
Then let me wake up now then. What the fuck?
See, that's
waste my time on this human body then.
It's one of those things where it's almost like you're better off never knowing. I think the shock would kill most people. I think the shock would drive, I wouldn't say kill, but drive most people mad. Like, your brain just wouldn't be able to handle it, because we do have clean-cut limits on what we can and can't handle. So I personally would not even want to know, because I know you as human beings are purpose-driven. Whether some maybe more than others, but the reason why we don't kill ourselves is because there's a reason. We all believe, most of us believe, that we exist for a reason. If that were taken away, everything you've done, all your accomplishments were just some sort of data that was fed to your simulation, everything you do is pointless. Everything is pre-programmed, predestined. All that stuff would take away what it means to be a human. So it would be a very, honestly, cruel thing if we are being controlled by some sort of higher power that, that's even happening. Because maybe that's what death is. Death is like, okay, well, this person's had enough. Like, what if death is if going into the simulation theory, what if death is like your brain outside of the simulation has had its full, like, oh, this person's dying. That's what old age is. Your brain on the outside is like, oh yeah, this guy's fried. We're going to pull the plug on him and then you're dead. And then you just wake up, or they just essentially dispose of you.
See, I guess with this whole thing, we're not trying to prove that. Well, no, I don't want to say that. I guess it's just when we say, like, it's a theory that we are in a simulation, that I don't think they're trying to prove, like, the whole basic needs of, like, how do we get fed and stuff like that. But from my understanding, it's just that, this is just proposing the idea that we're in one, and all the other stuff for instance, like um, there was a video, I think with Neil Tyson DeGrasse. He was saying essentially like if we are in a simulation and you wanted to start digging, you're digging, and then when you get to a certain point on the ground, there's like a flag that comes up, and it's like, hey, we need to have more ground put in, and so they add more ground and more ground, and to the point where you either stop or you're tired, whatever it is. So it's just like, how do I say this? It's always adding more before you can actually realize it, if that makes sense. Like before you actually realize that you're in a simulation.
So the theory is definitely more about just like the thought, I guess, more so than the how. And I don't even think it necessarily relates usually when they talk about it to like human bodies and things. I think it's more of if we can create technology that creates a simulation like The Sims, we're all coding. We're not a human body kind of like trapped somewhere. We're literally just lines of code that are so well done that here we are today.
That would be crazy. You to find out you are just like almost like a brain in a jar, and you're just how you manifest.
And to what John was just saying, like, okay, that's a lot of computing power. Like that is unbelievable. So then they go down this path of, well, how do you save like memory in space? Well, if you're not looking at something, it doesn't have to be there. It's like a video game. Things far away don't render. If it's behind you, it disappears. So like we can never look behind us. So who's to say right behind me is just all black until I turn around and then the computer simulation makes it come up right away.
So you ruined my life. It ruined my everything. I'm just gonna be in my room trying to turn around as fast as possible. Like,
gotcha,
dude. That's amazing. I did not think about that.
What if even with deja vu, right? Like, what if it was a glitch? Like all of a sudden the trees disappeared, or things started spazzing out. You're freaking out. The program realizes that, resets you back a couple seconds, wipes your memory, and that's why it feels like you've been there before, because you were literally kicking and screaming and freaking the hell out seconds before, but you don't remember it.
Sounds like not a good time, bro. I'm not gonna lie to you. It's like a terrible time.
Is it kind of like how, like people say, like if you were to see yourself, you wouldn't recognize yourself?
What do you mean?
Like if you were to have like an actual clone of yourself and that was just walking by, like you wouldn't,
oh man,
like you wouldn't recognize yourself. And when you look at a mirror,
you have twins.
I don't know where I'm going with this. There's something.
Twins exist in real life, so I mean,
because you're always like looking at yourself mirrored versus like your true face.
Like you don't. It's never. Yeah, like you said, what Stewart said, like it's a reflection of you. It's not actually you.
Yeah. And even, I mean, hell, simulating a mirror, all you see is what's in the mirror. It doesn't mean it's truly behind you. You're still looking forward. You're still looking at something in front of you. So even though it is quote unquote a reflection, doesn't mean there's anything behind you. It's weird. It's creepy to think like there's just maybe total black and darkness right behind me, and there's no way to ever know.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's, I'm going to say something extremely dark. I think there's only two ways to find out. If you could somehow, first one, the more positive way, if you could build a vessel that was so fast and you would just fly forever. Like let's say, for example, you would just keep flying and see if you could catch up with the end of the universe or the edge of the universe. They say the universe is constantly expanding, right?
Yeah.
Isn't that like what I always say? So, if you could catch up with the simulation, building more, simulation, I guess, or you kill yourself and see what's on the other side.
Yeah, it's funny you bring that up because in that video with Neil deGrasse Tyson, he was talking to Chuck Nice, and they were talking about the speed of light. And their thought was maybe the speed of light is a programmer's limitation, so then you can't get somewhere faster than the program can render it. So you're always limited by the speed of light, so it can continuously put things in front of you in order to make sure you're not beating that and then
catching up to it. Yeah. You would go so fast that, I mean, I guess it's kind of related to it, but I don't know if you guys have seen this Black Mirror episode. It was the first episode of the latest season. I think it's 4 or 5. I forget how many seasons are out now. But anyway, it deals with, like VR and simulations. So essentially, it was like this guy was in part of this like big tech company that made this video game, and it was all like, virtual reality, where he would put these two little almost like little like buttons on the side of his head, and he would go into this virtual world. So, cut long story short, if you listeners, if you haven't watched the episode and plan to watch it, I apologize, but
No apologies. It's been out
yeah,
for a while.
yeah. So I'm gonna ruin it. Essentially, what happens is that he gets basically goes to that world. But the interesting thing is when the game updates, it actually it closes off the previous universe. So, for example, he ends up getting trapped, and he's actually a terrible dude. So he hates his coworkers, and he has this technology that he can take your DNA, like something from like DNA from the rim of a cup you just drank out of, or like a lollipop or something like that, put it into a machine, and then you would render into this virtual world with your actual thoughts and everything. So you'd be an exact copy of the Stewart you are right now. Well, up until the moment I took that DNA, and then you'd be an exact copy of John up until the moment I took your DNA. So in that world, there's a copy of you. So it's almost similar to what you're talking about, where the only difference is in that world is that once, like, for example, like there's limitations on that. So they reach the end of the universe is basically the end of the downloaded update. So like if you're not a gamer, most games nowadays have updates and things like that add more to the game, whether it's expanding to the world or store it. So in this version, he ends up getting trapped in. He gets trapped in the previous one, and essentially it's almost similar where he ends up going crazy. He gets trapped in his own head. And it was pretty interesting because I won't suppose if that could be like similar to the same thing that we're in right now, where let's say, for example, if you catch up to the end of the universe expanding, what if that's how you get to the other side? What if that's how you break out of it? Because in the end, he gets trapped because the previous universe closes and that's it. So like he's forever in that universe because the next update comes out and you can't get to it. So what if the same thing what if we're in our current update right now? So then when new people are born, all that stuff, that's next update. So they get to experience the next one. So our lifespan. So right now we're part of the old patch, I guess to say. So when all of us die, that's the old model. And then the new model comes out, and then that's what progression in society is: bigger buildings, futuristic, all that stuff. It's the next up, and we keep going and going and going until they decide that the simulation or game's boring, and then that's truly what the end of time is, whether Earth gets blown up or whatever it is.
My head just like blew right now because I didn't even think about it like that.
So there's not a lot that causes me stress or anxiety when I have like these thoughts like this, but there is something I think about sometimes, and I feel like it kind of relates to what you were just saying. And you know what? I don't want to be the only one that feels this way, so I'm going to bring you guys in with me on this.
Go ahead and spread the misery.
I have this thought sometimes, like, what if every night when we go to sleep and we wake up as an entirely different person, but we wake up and we have all of their memories and everything. So you wake up thinking you were the same person yesterday, but in reality, I've only been this person for, the 12 hours that I've been awake.
So your character was worked on while you're asleep. Essentially the previous steward that went to sleep, that gets wiped. And then a new steward is downloaded, but the new steward doesn't even know that he's a new steward.
Not even another steward. Like I go to sleep today, and tomorrow I wake up as John, but I have all of John's memories. So to me in that moment, I feel like I've always been John, but in reality, I've only been him since I woke up. And then when I go back to sleep,
like a terrible acid trip.
Yeah. It causes me I don't know, it freaks me out because then I'm sitting here thinking like, okay, I have all of these memories, but are they real? Like, did I actually experience them, or do I just think I did? And it hasn't only been 8 hours in this body, even though it feels like 28 years.
Oh my God, dude, I don't even know anymore. I'm just gonna I don't even know what to do.
I think at least one of our viewers is going to have like a seizure from just listening to this. It's going to crack their code.
Yeah, that on top of like never knowing that you can't ever look behind you because it might be all black.
That was the one thing that I took away where it's like you turn around and it's not. That would be insane because technically all you see is into your like left and front and right.
Yeah. Or even if it's just a room, right? Like if you're in the bathroom or something, only the bathroom is rendered. Everything outside of those four walls and that door don't exist.
Yeah, anything within your peripheral vision and in front of you is what's rendered.
So basically, people that wear glasses are people running on an old operating system. That's why their shit's
Yeah, it renders
That'll be a
little.
clip right there. Anyone who's wearing glasses has some
Yeah,
old ass program.
Old ass fucking Microsoft Windows 10, whatever that bullshit is.
Yeah, let's wrap this up. So yeah, that I feel like we kind of explained it, but I feel like I'm more confused now than I was before. I don't know about you guys.
Questions and answers.
Yeah, it brings up a lot more questions.
Yeah. So Stewart, we had talked a little bit earlier before this, and we've been talking about this a little bit actually way before we even started this episode. But you were talking about how you have one podcast now. It's Be Unguarded. You want to talk a little bit about that, and then your upcoming project?
Yeah. So yeah, current podcast that I have out right now, I think like 4 episodes or so. Still pretty brand new, but it's called Be Unguarded. And essentially what I do is I have people come on and talk through a current problem or situation that they're working on. Not necessarily with the goal to resolve it by the end of an hour, but more so just to explore it, ask questions, dig in, maybe connect some dots. And then for anybody listening, the hope for me is, there's been times for me, at least personally, where I feel like I'm the only one going through something, or I'm the only one feeling a certain way. But if I were to sit there and listen and hear all these stories, maybe not. Okay. Now I realize there's a lot of other people out there that are experiencing the same things that I am. So from a listener standpoint, I hope, some people can maybe make those connections, just feel a little bit better about where they are and understand they're not alone in anything that they're battling.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was
really cool.
Yeah, I was one of Stewart's first published episodes, so definitely check that out. I highly recommend it. It's kind of like not non-disclosure. I guess he's not a doctor, but it did feel like a therapy session.
Well, it doesn't really matter since we're on a simulation, so he can be a doctor if he wants.
I'm just saying
attitude code.
And then my other project that is still in the works to be started, have a couple, I guess, episodes semi-drafted. Shout out to my girlfriend for writing some of that up. It's called One Fact Man. I would like to thank you two for the name, just because it came up in random conversation between the 3 of us, and then it's definitely stuck. But that one's gonna be a little bit different. So I have the interview style podcast, and then I kind of wanted to experiment with a solo podcast, and this one is gonna be short episodes, like 5 minutes, maybe at most, give or take 5-8 minutes, and each episode would just cover a unique or interesting or obscure fact and kind of just go over it, something like a did you know, or maybe like a fun fact of the day kind of thing.
Yeah, we Stewart is full of random facts, and so I was like, you know what, this would be perfect for you. Just get this all out of your head and onto an episode, and I would definitely be tuned into that. So looking forward to that one.
For sure.
So if anyone who listened to this is still listening to this, if you're not brain dead or fucked up from the simulation theory, still reach your finger and smash that like button, that follow button, wherever the hell you listen to us. Follow us on our social media. Instagram is Puzzled Minds Podcast. Twitter is Puzzled Minds Pod, and our email is puzzledmindspodcast@gmail.com, where we do encourage anyone and everyone to submit a topic that they would like us to hear. Last but not least, thank you again to the @official block of the week on Instagram for the weekly episode cover art. And I guess, I don't know, maybe it's a new thing that we'll do. We'll say next week, teaser, since you guys listened this far, we will be answering the internet's weirdest questions. So if you have a weird question you would like us to unravel and hear our thoughts about, send us a suggestion, and then we will answer it as weirdly as we can. Other than that, everyone stay puzzled.
Peace.
See ya.